Good morning, and welcome to the first Thursday of the 2021 National Shared Mobility Summit. Now, our Thursdays are a little bit more informal, and they feature the Mobility Justice Spotlight, oral histories for equitable futures, as well as networking events. So today we're kicking off the spotlight. Our host, Jerome Horn, will tell you a little bit more about it shortly. And this is going to be followed by a Meet the Author event with Todd Littman. So without further ado, here's Jerome.
Hello and welcome to the 2021 Mobility Justice Spotlight, Oral Histories for Equitable Futures. I'm your host, Jerome Horn, and I'm currently a transportation planning, communications, and engagement specialist at Foursquare Integrated Transportation Planning. It is my pleasure to be here and share this beautiful moment of civic discussion with you and our amazing nominators and nominees. So what is this event about anyway? Well, it is our goal to expand your understanding of the realities of mobility and justice and promote frank discussion about how we can address these systemic inequities by giving a voice and platform to Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color, marginalized populations, and organizations to tell their stories to leaders in the transportation field. It's no secret that who you are and how you show up in the world can impact your experience, existence, and the opportunities afforded to you. Representation at all levels absolutely matters. The 2021 Mobility Justice Spotlight hopes to flip the power structure and uplift voices that you may not be familiar with. These voices have the power to educate you, move you, and compel you to understand their needs in the greater transportation industry and their efforts being done to address those needs. It is our intention to elevate the conversation on needs like access to jobs, housing, healthcare, education, mobility options, and community assets. We will provide assistance to initiatives that actively seek to address these inequities and reward storytellers for their participation with exposure, connections, and technical assistance if applicable. We'll create an equity resource hub on the Learning Center with spotlight and additional content. So logistics for this event. We have asked 3 individuals who are experts in the equity and mobility justice space to nominate 1 individual or organization. Those are our storytellers. And these storytellers will share the transportation gaps and mobility injustices in their communities or regions and the efforts being done to address those needs. So once again, welcome to the 2021 Mobility Justice Spotlight. And we're going to transition to the introduction of our first nominator, Romina Castillo. Romina is a senior associate at Muse Community and Design. She is a community planner focused on equitable mobility, coalition building, and inclusive community engagement practices. Her primary goal is to support community-led initiatives through technical assistance, helping build capacity, and facilitating processes to envision strategies that create healthy, safe, and thriving public places. With that said, please welcome Romina Castillo.
Thank you, Jerome. Today, I am very thankful for the opportunity to present you the Mobility Spotlight nominee for today, who is the Northwest Side Housing Center and the Belmont Cragin Youth Leadership Council. The Northwest Side Housing Center is a community-based organization, nonprofit organization that responds to the needs of the community. And they do so by organizing around issues that residents identify as priorities. The Northwest Side Housing Center also provides over 20 free programs, such as first-time home buyer programs, financial coaching, and foreclosure prevention. Another of such programs that the Northwest Side Housing Center supports is the Belmont Cragin Youth Leadership Council. The council has identified issues and concerns in their community, and they elevate those issues by bringing them to the table where they meet with those in power, such as their local alderperson, elected officials, and those who have connections to the Belmont Cragin community. As a group, they understand the importance of collective resiliency. They leverage community resources and are passionate about their ongoing transportation campaign, where they are on a mission to improve transportation connectivity, services, and accessibility in the Belmont Cragin area. Today, we'll have the pleasure of hearing from three representatives of the Belmont Cragin Youth Council. First, we have Janilette Rivera. She's 17-year-old. She's a senior at Lincoln Park High School and has been part of the council for 4 years. She's also a student leader at her local youth ministry. We will also hear from Sander Cardona. He's 18-year-old and an incoming freshman at Wright College. He has been part of the council for 2 years and is passionate about boxing and cooking. Also, we have today Minerva Garcia, a 16-year-old student from Northside College Prep. She has been part of the council for 1 year and is also a leader of Folclórico, a Mexican traditional dance club. So please join me to welcome as we welcome them and as we look forward to hearing more about their stories.
Hey everyone, my name is Jeremy and I'm the youth organizer at the Northwest Side Housing Center that's located in Chicago, Illinois in a community called Belmont Cragin. Now the Northwest Side Housing Center is a community-based organization that responds to the needs of the community. And in a few moments, you're gonna hear some stories from our young people about the issues that we're experiencing around transportation, specifically in our community. You're gonna hear about the effort, you're gonna hear about the issues, and you're gonna hear about the perseverance that our young people are going through and pushing for to make Belmont Cragin a more equitable and more transit-friendly community. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Jolly and I am part of the Belmont Cragin Youth Leadership Council, and here is the issue. Belmont Cragin is home to 87,000 residents, and out of those 87,000, 25,000 are young people under the age of 18. These young people typically rely on public transportation to move them around the whole community. They rely on CTA buses, bike lanes, Divvy bikes, and scooters. But what if I told you that Belmont Cragin is in a transportation desert? There are under 1.5 miles of bike lanes in the whole community, and CTA buses were given an F grade rating by Active Trans. We would not be quiet about this issue, and this is our reality, and we will continue to strive for justice.
Hi, my name is Minerva, and I'm a proud member of the Belmont Cragin Youth Leadership Council. And today I will be talking about our commitment and perseverance to our end goal. We didn't stop there. At the beginning of this year, we were notified that we have been selected by the Better Bike Share program to receive $250,000 over the course of 2.5 years to elevate our transportation work in the community. Belmont Cragin is 85% Latino. Why is it that wealthier neighborhoods have an overflow of Divvy stations, a prompt bus, and fresh bike lanes? Why can't we? It's time for justice in the name of transportation. Our Youth Leadership Council will work tirelessly until we see real results.
Hi, my name is Sander Cardona from the Belmont Cragin Youth Leadership Council, and today I'll be talking about the effort. See, it is easy to complain, and we accept the challenge ahead of us to solve these issues. However, we want to let you know what we have been doing. 2018, we flew to Washington, D.C. to meet with our elected officials to raise concern, but also to gain their support. And we also drove down to Springfield, Illinois to meet with our state elected officials to do the same, but also to see if there's any funding. While advocating for the capital bill, we received 2 Divvy grants to explore the impact Divvy would have in our community. We also have been going to CTA board meetings to raise our frustrations and concerns with their services. And we also have been working with CDOT to expand the bike lanes within the community. And I am proud to say that by the end of 2021, we'll be gaining 11 new Divvy stations and 5 miles of bike lanes within Belmont Cragin.
All right, wonderful. Well, looks like we have all of our participants entering the room. Once again, hello everyone. I am Jerome Horn, your host for today, and very excited to have this discussion. I want to acknowledge that we saw a wonderful video with our with the Youth Council, and they were, they are here with us live today. And so I want to turn it over to Jeremy so that we can actually meet them in person and hear a little bit more from them about their initiative.
Thanks, Jerome. Again, everyone, I'm Jeremy. I'm the youth organizer at the Northwest Side Housing Center that's located in Belmont Cragin, one of 77 communities in Chicago. And I'm joined by our youth, some of our youth council members that you saw on the video. I'm here with Jolly, Minerva, and Xander. So we are here. We're ready to engage with you all and answer any questions and have a discussion regarding transportation in our community.
Wonderful. Well, at this time, I guess we want to kick it off so we can begin to have sort of a dialogue and back and forth. First, I want to ask Romina, is there anything else that that you would like to highlight, or questions that you may have for the Youth Council to answer live here in this session?
Great, thanks, Jerome, and welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I guess something that I just wanted to highlight, and having the Youth Council, some of the Youth Council here, and Jeremy with us today, just wanted to mention how important and how wonderful it is that Belmont Cragin as a community, they have truly been able to leverage the power of the youth and their voices, and create a spaces and a space to help them come together and just brainstorm, try different things, grow together as human beings and as members of the one community. And all that really speaks of the power of the human infrastructure, on how that's supporting the efforts of improving our built infrastructure. And that's something that, as an urban planner and working with different communities and with different advocates, sometimes it takes more efforts to get that momentum going, really understanding, educating yourself as a person, educating your own community and others regarding the importance of infrastructure, and why transportation is so important to everything that we do every day, and how that is interconnected with everything else in our lives. So first of all, I just wanted to give props for the hard work that they're doing, because they are already getting that started. So I guess my question, maybe just to get that to get this conversation going, is in the video, you all provided some information about your community and why it's important for your community. I'm very interested to hear, and hopefully others are interested to hear more of your own personal journey, like why transportation, why infrastructure it's important for your own in your own lives.
Hi, Romina, and everyone else. My name's Xander. I just want to thank you for having us here. Thank you, Romina, for your comments. But just to answer your question, for me personally, I think my journey started like going into high school. I started having to take the CTA buses throughout Chicago to get to my school, and in doing that, I realized how bad like some of the buses are in Chicago, especially the diversity bus, which is the one I take, and it just is it's a mess. I'm gonna be honest. It's dirty. It's slow. It's never on time. And then when I started working at the housing center and the youth council, I learned about the transportation campaign they were doing, and I was all for it because I want to change that. But not only that, within that time, I started riding bike. I never rode a bike like in the street really or go on bike rides. And that to me kind of impacted me because then I started riding bike more throughout like last summer, a little bit in the fall. And it just got me more engaged and seeing like, you know, different struggles, whether it's potholes or like no bike lanes or even, you know, just like not enough divvies within the community.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I'm just curious about, mentioned the lack of bike lanes and having sort of that safe infrastructure, that safe pathway. Have there been moments that you experienced while biking on the street where, you felt unsafe or you had close encounters with, automobiles, or just moments that you think would have been better if you had better bicycle infrastructure in the community?
So I'll pass over the conversation. For me personally, I am not a big bike rider. Because of a past experience I had 2 years ago. We were having one of our bike rides that we have annually, and we were in a big group, and it was down the street of Diversity where there's no bike lanes at all, really. And it came into a point where the cars were stopping and getting really close to parked cars, so we had to go individually. And I lost control of my bike and I actually ran into a parked car. So ever since that, like I've been really anxious about bike riding, specifically in Belmont Cragin because we only have 1.5 miles of bike lanes. And that has been one of our goals that we as a youth council have been advocating for. So with that experience, I'm hoping to grow with biking. We're eventually going to get by the end of this month. So that's my personal experience with it.
Thanks for sharing. And yeah, it's understandable to have an encounter like that, definitely dissuade someone for potentially riding a bike more. And so yeah, it'd be really important. And I appreciate the work that you all are doing to advocate and get more bike lane facilities in Belmont Cragin. I just want to remind the audience, feel free to jump in here and ask questions. I believe that if you want to ask a question, turn on your camera. I believe we have the ability to unmute you. I think I see Jay has a question.
Well, actually, I was just wondering, would it be okay if I quickly, well, I'll try to be quick about it. If it's okay if I quickly share my story. Well,
yeah.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jay Lambrechs. I work as a transportation analyst in Ithaca, New York. And my journey actually started many years ago. I know I don't look it, but I'm actually 30. And in high school, I did a study abroad program to San Fernando, Spain. And I grew up in a family that was fairly environmentalist, like we always emphasize recycling, conservation, don't litter. It was very, it was definitely a part of our value system, but it was pretty basic. And I never thought about transportation before, never, not once. I grew up in, the suburbs. We drove everywhere. I never had set foot on a bus, any kind of public transportation system in my life. And when I went there, it was not a bikeable city. It was a small city, but you could walk from one end of the city to the other in half an hour. The bus came every 5 minutes. We had high-speed rail access from there to every corner of the country. I did not set foot in a car once while I was there for the whole year. And I remember I took that for granted for quite a while. And then when I came back, it all hit me at once. I just, the noise, the smell, like I could, I never smelled gas while I was over there in Spain. And when I came back, it was an overload. And then right then and there, I decided to focus on transportation because it's just, it's an area of sustainability that is definitely growing. It's such an exciting time to be in transportation right now, because while it is growing, it's still it's still in its infancy in the way we look at it. And yeah, I hope going forward that we can take what we can from our European counterparts. I think that they're really onto something, and going forward from here, that's what I hope to promote.
Jay, thanks for sharing your story and the experience of having that exposure when you go to a place that has a well thought out, multimodal connected network. You really, it kind of sticks with you. And once you have that experience, there's something you crave for wherever you go. And then when you come back to a place that doesn't, it's very apparent very quickly that that is not the reality or the case. And, I think in some of our discussions here, there is a reality where, the equitable distribution of resources in the city of Chicago, right, is not what it needs to be. And we know there are parts of the city that have way more robust and frequent bus service and better bike lane facilities, divvy stations. And so I think that there's even just focusing locally in this particular conversation that there's a need to bring the same distribution of resources that exist in certain parts of the city to other parts, and that's definitely something that we're shooting for. Any other audience questions? Don't be shy. Okay, well, we'll just keep it moving along. So I want to turn back to members of the Youth Council. So we talked a little bit about biking. Let's talk a little bit more about the bus and just the lack of service or the infrequency of service, and just the experience of riding the bus and how that impacts you. And maybe if how is the bus useful or not useful to you? And what type of trips might you take on the bus? Do you take the bus to go further distances than you would bike or walk? But let's just talk about the current state of the bus and really what you would like to see to improve bus service.
Thank you for that question. Just as a reminder, I'm Minerva. So I, same as Xander, started taking the bus when I went into high school. So I would have to take Austin, Foster, but even though my school is on the north side, the big streets around there don't have buses. So I still had to walk a lot. I had to walk 10 minutes to get to school. So right away when I noticed that, and I decided to do a presentation on how we can get more buses there, and that's kind of where I saw the connection with the Youth Council, and that's how I got connected with the Youth Council and their transportation campaign work. So I talked at the CTA board meeting with Yali, and that's where we decided to let them know, we're high school students and we have a lot of workload, and not being able to get to school on time is really a big issue, especially for Yali's school, because if they get too many tardies and they get detentions, but most of the time it's not their fault. It's bus service is not consistent enough with our schedules, and it doesn't work with us. So then we get the consequences, right? So we're just really interested in seeing how the equity of resources are going to come into Belmont Cragin, and that's why we're pushing for more divvy stations. We're actually going to get 22 new stations. Since Belmont Cragin is such a large community, that's why we have so many new stations. We're 85% Latino, like how I said in the video, and we're just really pushing to see the same changes in other communities that are white and rich, or they're wealthy. The same should be happening in Belmont Cragin, even if we're middle class, low class, and minority neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you, Minerva. And I appreciate you sharing more, personal stories, because, the lack of access or the lack of reliable service, really impacts your personal life. And, being late to school, being late to a job. I mean, these are things that impact quality of life. And everyone, no matter who you are or what you look like or how much money you make, if we're really trying to live up to our ideals, then that we need to have that great distribution of the services that are available. And I think, for those that are comfortable and able to ride bikes, having more divvy stations is going to be a huge boost, because there are times where certainly biking can be the fastest way to get somewhere, rather than getting in your car or a bus from time to time. So I think that'd be a great addition to the neighborhood and the community. I'm going to ask any other audience questions or thoughts that come up, or Jeremy or Romina, anything that's sparked in your head while we've been having this discussion?
I definitely want to make space for anybody else who might have some questions or comments. I think this is our opportunity to just have a dialogue. It's not too often that we have three wonderful young leaders in transportation with us, so just wanted to mention that. I guess maybe I do have some thoughts and questions maybe for the youth council, and hopefully we can spark a little more conversation. So you guys, and I know some of the wonderful work that you've been doing in bringing awareness to your own community through education, educating your own community on the benefits of transportation and advocacy and transportation. I'm also, it would be great if you can tell us a little bit more of the work that you've been doing with your elected officials, because we know that that is something key when trying to fund, when seeking to fund really large projects like bike lanes and bus routes and so many other different things around transportation and infrastructure. So if you can just tell us a little bit more of the work that you've been doing around, how you're engaged your elected officials. You mentioned you went to Springfield and I believe also DC. So you've been really exposed to those conversations. So how does those conversations go, and how do you work with your elected officials just to again bring that awareness to them about your community, but also keeping them accountable to those asks and those changes that you want to see?
So I know we mentioned DC and Springfield, and yeah, we touched on that, but locally, some of the things we've been doing is meeting with our aldermen in the 31st ward and the 34th and 32nd ward. And basically, we just meet up with them and we talk about transportation. We tell them our issues, or like the issues that are occurring, and feedback we have from like the community and the residents. Just a little side note, something I had to do is before this big bike ride event I personally went to Simon's High School with another youth, and we basically surveyed the residents there while they're having their 20-30 minute wait time for after the vaccine. And basically we just got all this feedback, and it was because of this feedback that we kind of like asked our aldermen, and we even met with our state rep Eva Dina Delgado, and we actually met with her, I think it was last week, right? Mm-hmm. Met with her last week during the meeting, and we've been on I think Facebook Live with her as well, and we just keep asking and kind of like asking about budgeting for transportation, as well as like what we want and need, and like again, like I said, the feedback.
So more going towards like our work with DC and Springfield. In 2018 was when we really broadcasted and kicked off the start of our transportation campaign. So with that being said, we drove to DC. We flew to DC and we met with just like our senators and our congressmen to talk about the concerns and issues that we have here at Belmont Cragin. We then drove later that year to Springfield to meet more with state reps and senators about the funding that's being used for the capital bills that we were asking for, and just to see like what funding is available to our concerns and issues in the community. With that being said, we were able to get 2 Divvy grants, which then explored to the rest of the work we have at Divvy leading up to this year, where we finally see our work being put into action and gaining these 22 Divvy stations.
And something big about the youth council is that we are really pushing people to learn about how power works in their communities and how elected officials have this power and this obligation to respond to the needs of the community. And so we're definitely in contact with elected officials, with the alderman, especially Ivadina Delgado, who is our state rep, and she was just here a few days ago. And really getting into conversations with them about how we can move forward with our project.
That's wonderful. I have to say that it really warms my heart hearing all three of you speak about the work that you're doing. I hope you realize that this is fantastic, and I'm really excited, proud of the work you've done, and really excited for where all of you are going to head, because we need more, excited, motivated young people, and I know there are plenty. But just you talked about power. And I think that's a big part of this mobility justice spotlight, and just the inequities that exist in transportation is who has the power, who has the representation in their communities, who has the time and the effort to organize and bring people together. And you all should be very proud and commended for what you're doing of getting out there, and taking a stance and contacting your elected officials and pushing for what you want and what you deserve and what you should have in your community. So that is really, really fantastic. We do have a few questions that came in from the audience here in chat. So we have a question from Leslie Gray, and the question is, what one thing would each of you change about your current transit access in Belmont Cragin? If anybody wants to take on that question.
So me, one thing that I would change, more going towards like the meeting with CTA and board meetings and stuff like that. One thing that I would change is adding specific bus lights to the city lights, because I feel like giving this certain light and having this certain light at these city lights will give the bus a 15-second head start to be able to go instead of being caught in traffic in the intersection. So I feel like that would be really useful for not only the residents, but people who are not only the residents who are taking the bus, but people who are also in cars or people who are also in bikes. It will give them the opportunity, give the bus an opportunity to just have this little jump start and just have this little head start so that they could keep going along with their route.
And
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. At the CTA board meeting right before then, I was researching like specific strategies or policies that are already in place so that they can bring them to the communities. And something that I remember is that downtown Chicago, they actually have like bus only lanes or during specific times.
Yeah.
And they were proving to be really successful. Like the CTA and the city of Chicago were saying, like, we're seeing great improvement with like traffic flow and people just being more respectful of the bus and how like buses need priority to make sure that the traffic flows, because like Chicago's a really big city and like traffic is always going to be a problem, but making sure that we have these policies, these procedures and stuff like that can really push us forward, you know. Yeah, that's it.
That's excellent. Yeah, giving priority to the bus, right? The bus is really the workhorse of all of our transit systems. Even if you have a robust rail network, you know, the reality is rail doesn't go everywhere and never will go everywhere. So making sure that we have, you know, fast, reliable buses is really key to unlocking the potential of transit. And I think that's really great. And it kind of answers a question that we have from Benji that is asking about some of the things that, or kind of we're transitioning. It's a great segue into this question. What are some things that Divvy and Chicago Department of Transportation, what could they do better to help kids learn how to ride bikes and more safely and more comfortably? What do you think are some of the efforts that they could take on?
So basically, I think Divvy and CDOT, what they could do is do what we're doing. And not only that, but right now on Tuesdays, the Youth Council, we're meeting with this other non-for-profit to have a bike workshop. And within these bike workshops, we're going to learn how to fix bikes, how to maintain a bike, or even, you know, basic hand signals while you're on the street, you know, just to be safer while biking. But, you know, to also have a bike and like make it last as long as you want, but also to have that enjoyment while biking.
Anything else to add?
Well, I could add something to also to that question. So that's one of the ways in which I've been able to meet with the Youth Council and meet some of the representatives and work closely with Jeremy is working through Divvy engagement around the expansion into Belmont Cragin and also bikeways. So one way in which Divvy and our team is helping them is, again, pretty much what they just mentioned, really providing and empowering and supporting the efforts that they're already doing. So we're not trying to come in as, you know, saving the day. They already saved the day. They're continuing to saving every day. So we're trying to provide them with the resources. So providing Divvy bikes when they have their bike rides, also including them in those conversations around the expansion. So they have helped us in the past leading conversations, round tables, just discussions about what's happening in their community. They are the experts, as they have proven time and time. And something else, CDOT is currently working on a neighborhood bikeways plan for the expansion of bike lanes in Belmont Cragin. And something that I know CDOT has been doing and we've been doing is joining their youth council conversations. So we're definitely inviting them to our meetings, but we're also coming to their meetings. So I think finding that common ground and just showing up for our partners. And I know they show up and they support both the Divvy expansion, but also the Department of Transportation and the city. So we're returning the favor, being good partners and attending their meetings as well. So I think, again, we're super grateful for that partnership and collaboration.
That's great that you've been able to establish that type of collaboration and connection. Certainly goes a long way. We have several questions in the chat about sort of the structure of the Youth Council and the formation of it. But before we get there, I believe Mackenzie Love has a question that I believe she would like to ask live. If you'd like to do that.
Sure. Hi, Jerome. This is Mackenzie Love. Pleasure to be here listening in on this session. I wanted to ask all of the panelists do you think that youth, particularly around your age group, i.e. those individuals who can travel alone, have different transportation needs than other demographic groups, say middle-aged individuals, for example? And if so, could you provide any examples of how they differ so that practitioners can be aware of that and make sure those nuanced differences are accounted for in the planning process? Thanks for being here.
Hi, yeah. I don't think the needs are different. A couple months ago, we did have a Zoom meeting with these seniors from a senior home not too far from where we're at in the housing center. And basically everything, we see it as a concern or problem. The seniors did too. So I don't think it's just like, it's just an individual for an age group. I think it's just an overall issue for the whole community. No matter what age, what race, how poor or how rich, it's just an issue that's affecting everyone.
Thanks. So we have several questions that are kind of about the sort of the structure of the youth council. There's a question about how was the youth council formed, kind of how does funding work, and then what advice would you all have for other organizations that work with youth and want to create this type of change in their community? So that's a lot to unpack. So I guess, maybe we'll start first with the sort of the history of the Youth Council and how that was created.
Yeah, I can answer that question. In 2014, our community, with the assistance and funding from LISC Chicago, were able to develop a quality of life plan. And one of the main concerns that we're hearing from our residents was working with young people. Belmont Cragin is a third of the population is youth. So that's around 27,000 young people. And, up until then, our organization didn't work with youth. We didn't have any youth programs. But after the quality of life plan was formed, we made a commitment to work with young people. And what did it mean at that time? Besides something that we needed to do, we didn't know how it was going to look. We didn't know really how, to form it. We just said, all right, we're going to make a commitment to work with youth. And I'm actually the second youth organizer. There was one before me, and how they just started was they built relationships with the local high schools and elementary schools, and just started recruiting students, saying, hey, if you want to come to a free after school program, we'll feed you, we'll do fun stuff, we'll talk about issues, come to the housing center. And they provided transportation for youth to come to the housing center. And it just started as an after school program where students were unsupervised after school. Parents didn't know, they're working 2 or 3 jobs. They didn't know what to do with their young person besides stay home. So then they would just come to our center, and we would feed young people, and we would just provide a safe space for students. So that's kind of like the building blocks, how it was formed. And then out of that came, okay, what are we going to do with these young people? How are we going to organize? How are we going to solve issues? And it just became a space where students can come and voice their concerns about things that they were seeing in the community. And once I got here 4 years ago, it was already, established. They were already working on, certain issues. And then this transportation campaign was formed. So originally it was formed out of our quality of life plan, where we said that we wanted to work with young people. And then out of that formed the Youth Council, and now we have 3 other youth programs that are also a part of our organization that are not geared towards organizing, but they're geared towards students that want to know more about college, want to get better in school, that need a tutor. So the youth organizing, the Youth Council is just an arm of our youth programs, but that's specifically how the Youth Council started. And as far as funding, we get many grants, private grants. We also get state funding. Also, we have a lot of private donors at the organization. One of the grants that we just got this past year is from the People's for Bikes and the Better Bike Share program. which is a huge lift to our youth organizing efforts this year. So we get a lot of different grants from a different lot of sources, but those are just a few to name. And then as far as the advice, I'll leave it to the young people because they're the best at giving advice.
Can you repeat the question about that?
Yeah. So the question was, what advice would you have for, I guess, kind of other organizations that work with youth and other youth as well, that want to create the kind of change in their community that you all are doing right now?
Okay, I'll start off the answer to this question. For me personally, we have a lot of young leaders in this generation at this time of age. We have a lot of young leaders who want to create change, and we also have a lot of organizations and adults who want to create change. I feel like the only time where those two can't meet and intertwine is because there's no relationship being built, and relationships are being built at these schools, at schools. I feel like schools are a big way to just create relationships with anybody, any organization, any person, parks, just any local public place where a lot of youth are at. There's a lot of people who are willing to create change, and I just feel like you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid to create these relationships. So that's how I would take it. In my point of view, I feel like just going to these schools, going up to youth and asking what's important to them, what do they want to do, and what do they want to change in their community.
Building off of what Yali was just talking about, my advice to youth specifically would be like to not be afraid and seek discomfort, which is something that we are always repeating here at the council, because you just gotta make sure that you're opening up opportunities, that you're taking new opportunities that you won't see yourself, that you wouldn't like actually see yourself doing, kind of. And like trying new things as well. So not being afraid, and even if you think like you're gonna fail, like it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes, as long as like you learn from them and then you grow from them.
100%.
And advice I'd give is to kind of be like determined about it, you know? Like if you see these problems, you know, follow through to the end to try to fix it. Because like maybe whatever ideas you have may be the solution to that problem, or whatever ideas like anyone around you in your circle, you know, that might be the solution. And I think that kind of goes into the relationship and seeking discomfort, because I think with all three of those, and you know, you have power, you build power within yourself, but then around other people around you, and that's how leaders are made. And like I think a good leader, you know, learns from people who follow them, as well as, you know, the followers learning from the leader.
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you all for that wonderful answer. And you know, that theme of power keeps coming back up, and I think, you know, you all are living proof that, you know, every one of us as an individual has power, and each of us has the power to enact change. Now, that doesn't mean that it will be easy, but you know, if it's a worthwhile cause, it's worth it. And I appreciate the kind of dedication, the persistence, building relationships, just communicating, reaching out to people, and not being afraid to have those conversations that maybe take you outside of your comfort zone, because that's where we really grow. So this is fantastic. We do a few other questions. Actually, Jay has a question that they would like to ask live. So Jay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that I had a question on is how well do you feel the bus connects you to locations you want to access in your community? One of the I mean, one of the things we see across the country is bus schedules kind of designed around the 9 to 5 work schedule with peaks in the early morning and late afternoon, with very little access in the evening and during the day. Like, do you feel like you can use the bus to get to movie theaters, libraries, grocery stores? Do you feel outside of going to school or going to work that it's really connecting you to the community?
So for me personally, I go to Lincoln Park High School, so that's halfway across the city. And for me, it's like around, I want to say, a 40 to an hour minute bus drive, depending how the route is that day, depending on the traffic. Fullerton is a really busy, heavy street, as long as Diversey. Those are two really big, heavy, busy streets. There's a whole bunch of, there's countless numbers of schools on Fullerton itself. So coming from Belmont Cragin to Lincoln Park, I see youth in and out. And this is not only on school days, just an everyday basis. People are always using this Fullerton bus, this Diversey bus, any big street almost. You can always find a connection with community. Something I personally love taking the bus is that from Belmont Cragin to Lincoln Park, I can see all these different communities, and it's just something that I love to see every day. Going to school and coming back from school, I just get to see a lot of small businesses, a lot of new things that are opening up. And just, it gives me the opportunity to branch out into the community. So when I find this inconvenience of the buses not being on time, or there's just too much traffic, it really like stresses me out, because you just want to go places. Everyone needs to get somewhere. Everyone has to go somewhere. I feel like the only struggle with us in Belmont Cragin is that Laramie is one of our big streets. So that doesn't have a bus, sadly, but I mean, you can always walk somewhere. There's always somewhere to go. As far as going places, I love taking the bus and the train. Belmont Cragin currently doesn't have any train stops, so you'll have to take a bus to a train stop. The closest one is in Logan Square, so that's kind of an inconvenience to Belmont Cragin specifically. But that's my take on transportation. If you guys want to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Yali on everything. To be honest, like, I think taking the bus, me personally, it really helped me learn my streets. Like, it just helped me kind of know where everything is. And I think taking the bus, in my opinion, it's a complicated way of transportation, because you, like, if you never took the bus before and don't know your streets, then you have to be, attentive to where you're at. But after a while, you get used to it, so then, you know where everything is at. But on top of that, you kind of like, you do get a little frustrated when it drags, or, there's too many people. I know several times there's like 2 to 3 miles of just me in a bus, crowded, standing with like people coming in and out, and it was just frustrating to even, just, stand and just feel comfortable at all. But as well, like, I think the bus as well as the train, I know we don't advocate for the train or anything, but to me that's like very prideful in like Chicago, seeing like these different neighborhoods, seeing these different businesses as you go along. Like, I think diversity, you go along and you see all these different businesses. And then I know for me, sometimes I take Irving Park because it was like right where my school is, that drop off point. So I got to see like these different, businesses or firms or buildings come a long way from like since I was little, due to like, different communities changing or gentrification. But I think the bus in itself is like, it's a gift and a curse almost, it's just a blessing at times, but it's just kind of bad because of how poor it is on time. The sanitation is awful. Oh my gosh, the sanitation is horrendous to even think about. But it's, that's why I like, because we're kind of making that change for it to be better.
Mm-hmm. And taking the bus to school, you would see how Yali was talking about seeing a small business, seeing people just walking and like enjoying their day in the neighborhoods that you pass by, and noticing that there are peaks of like traffic. So in schools, when like the CTA knows like this is a time when most kids go on the bus, and them knowing that and taking that information back to their people and finding out, hey, how can we get more buses on there so that kids aren't like packed into a bus, because back before the pandemic happened, we were all just packed, and if you didn't get a seat, like you would just get touching so many other people, and you won't get to enjoy the view. You won't get that same experience that Yali was describing.
Yeah.
So that's something that we gave to them as feedback, and we hope to see now that we're going back in person again this following school year, like how that is going to change. Sorry.
Well, thank you again for really diving in and giving the personal perspectives on using the bus and some of the complex realities about using the service. So we are unfortunately about out of time. We have just under 3 minutes kind of left in this session. There were a few other questions about sharing best practices and best practices in messaging for the Youth Council. So I don't know if those are things that maybe we can connect those folks with Jeremy to be able to kind of answer those questions afterwards, or the other members, just because we don't have time. So I really wanted to just say in these last 2.5 minutes here or so, once again, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation, and I want to open up the floor so that anyone who has any final words from our panelists and participants, if you want to say anything to take us home, now's the time.
Thank you so much. Any questions, any concerns, like you can email us through Jeremy's email, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, and I think yes, thank you so much for joining this conversation and for the support to the youth and the interest to learn from them. I think one takeaway is, as they mentioned, don't be afraid of building relationships with the youth and reaching out to people who are already connected to them. And I just, never look back at the time, and they are my go-to experts in Belmont Cragin when we have a project. So I hope that you take that into account and start building relationships with organizations in your communities and start reaching out to them, because they're just taking over the world right now. And I mean, the sky is the limit, but for them, they already reached that in my book. So I'm very excited and to see where they go from here.
Wonderful. Well, yes, this has been just absolutely fantastic, enlightening. I really appreciate the work that you all are doing. You should feel once again very proud and keep it up. It's very, very important and necessary. Leslie just dropped in the chat Jeremy's email. Romina also just put in her email. So if you want to be able to contact them with any follow-up questions or other things that pop up, feel free to do that. Thanks again to all of our audience that came for our first Mobility Justice Spotlight. It's been a wonderful civic discussion, and we look forward to you all joining us again, hopefully the next 2 Thursdays for more enlightening discussion. With that said, I think this event is at a wrap.
Just want to say thank you for all of you listening to us, and thank you for having us here. It's a pleasure speaking and kind of telling you our story and what we do at the Housing Center and the Youth Council.
It was nice to reflect on all of our work. So thank you so much.
Yes, it's good to have these conversations and these relationships. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.